Recreation and Environment Committee. Today is May 28th, 2025, and I'm calling this meeting to order. This committee meeting is being live broadcasted on the following outlets: Comcast 96, Frontier 6032, HPA-TV.org, HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV's YouTube channel, HPA-TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, apps. And it will also be rebroadcast on HPA-TV's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Here with me tonight are Council President Shirley Surgeon, who's a voting member, and Councilmen Gale and Thomas, who are also voting members, Associate Corporation Counsel Danielle Combs, Director of Public Works Chris Hayes, CEO of the Hartford Parking Authority Jill Turlow, Director of Capital Projects and Operations Paul Drummy, Prac Commissioner Donna Schwar, and Mike Zaleski, CEO of Riverfront Recapture. First item we have on the agenda tonight is item 2.1, Mayor Aru Lampalam with accompanying ordinance amendments to ensure no vehicles park on the grass at city-owned parks and green spaces, and we have CEO Turlow who will speak to that item.
I'm going to be honest, I was not aware I was presenting specifically today, and I already told George I would have had a PowerPoint. But just to give a brief overview, the HPA has been contacted by multiple city parks in regards to parking concerns. A variety of things, but a lot of it is, no parking tow zones, the restriction of vehicles impeding traffic that make it difficult for other vehicles to get around them, and then most notably, parking on the grass. So I had done visits to I think most, if not all, of the city parks over the last few months, and I'd spoken about their concerns, some of which have specific parking issues and some of which don't, but was given support by Prac in regards to these changes to be able to go out to those parks and enforce as needed. This would allow us to enforce inside of any of the city parks, even the portions that fall outside of the city limits, which I know is one of the questions that was posed. And it was also written specifically to allow the HPA to collaborate with any of the friends groups or different organizations to determine the needs of each park individually, with the intention that we could serve whatever those parks need according to schedule or concerns.
Thank you for all your work on this item and your continued collaboration with these efforts for the parks. Do any committee members have any questions? Council President Surgeon.
Thank you. And I did speak with some of the park groups, which you're in favor of. There was only one question that was asked of me, and that is, with the parking authority, when there are people who have outstanding parking authority tickets, and they're in the park, and they are going to be given a ticket, would you be boosting their cars there?
Would we be immobilizing or towing, you mean?
Yes.
I would have to look at the ordinance language. I don't think that was something that we had discussed previously.
Well, that's something which they would like an answer to, because one of the things, I know our parks are different, and, I'm more involved with the Keeney Park more than, any other park groups. They don't have a lot of people parking, or they don't have people parking on the grass. What they do have up by the golf course side of the park is people parking on both sides of the street, so it's very difficult for the golfers to get in and out. But majority of them are also Hartford residents. And one of the questions they did ask me when I visited with them and we talked on the subject is, told them this is going to be coming, and would need to find out, again, if lots of our residents do have, parking ticket issues, and they should come down and make arrangements. But being in the park, and I do know when your attendants come by, on the regular Hartford streets, people have past due tickets, their cars are immobilized.
Yep, if they're scofflaw eligible. Since we have a corporation council person here, I
Sure.
don't know if you know do you know if we are compelled to boot someone if they are scofflaw eligible?
Councilwoman, through you, I personally am not the HPA counsel of record.
I know Natalie was
know-
supposed to be here tonight and she had to.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't know, but I do know that she said that any questions that are lingering with respect to this ordinance, she would be happy to answer at a later time. I'm not sure if you need an answer right now, Councilwoman, but of course, she would be able to answer them. Unfortunately, she's not present at this time.
I would just want to see if that's something that, if someone is scofflaw eligible, are we compelled to do so? Do we have authority in parks for the scofflaw eligibility? It's not something I'm necessarily pursuing to do. I just don't know if, with the way it's written in the municipal code, states that should that eligibility occur, if we are then obligated to. And I'd want to verify that with Corporation Counsel. I don't want to say no if the municipal ordinance says that that's something we're required to do. I'd have to read the ordinance language.
Okay.
Or refer to Corporation Counsel and have her give me the ordinance language.
If I may, I think the municipal code kind of reads it like all city property. But I do kind of agree that the parks would be a tough place to be booted. Like, and that's kind of, that'd be kind of tough. Like, you're not near any bus route. Sometimes some of our parks are actually, in some areas that you park, you might not even have good cell phone reception. And so I think it's just asking for some trouble sometimes. But, I do think our municipal code does read that all city property, if a car is parked in a parking spot, it could be immobilized.
Is that something that if this is approved, that City Council could choose to add that caveat? Should you so wish?
Well, that's something I would really need to take a look at. For me right now, that is a major concern, because normally during the regular weekday, a person can run down to your office and pay their tickets, whatever it is.
I will say we don't boot on the weekends because the office isn't open. And I believe my understanding for the parks is that most of the concerns are Saturday and Sunday. So if somebody was in a park on a Saturday or Sunday, we don't immobilize people on a date where they can't make a payment.
Well, they do know, in the park I'm looking at, they're there 7 days a week.
Okay.
So I would really need to have that answered.
Councilman Gale.
So I want to have a little dialogue with Councilwoman Surgeon for just a minute so that I'm understanding the issue. So the ordinance in front of us, if you want to take a look right there. The ordinance change in front of us is adding one more category that's subject to a fine, as I read it. So there's a whole list of things. If you do this, you're going to get fined anywhere, if I forget what it is, $45 or something. And now it adds one more thing, which is parking.
Yeah, I see that it acts on open space and green space, with writing. Yeah, I see that number 14.
Number 14.
Yeah.
And so, and Jill, maybe you can help out here.
I'm trying to open the municipal
The
code right now.
fact that this just, all this authorizes is a fine. This does not authorize any immobilization. But I take it if you're authorized to issue a fine on a car and you find that that car has other fines, that you're then authorized to immobilize? Is that the concern here?
That seems to be the concern, is if someone was already scofflaw eligible and met that requirement, whether we would be booting them in the parks.
And so that's already the case. If in this ordinance, just some understanding, it says, for instance, it's a $45 fine if you're parked in a loading zone. So if you claim to give somebody a ticket in a loading zone, when you're giving them the ticket, you know whether they have other tickets outstanding?
So when they scan the license plate, it will pop up if they are scofflaw eligible. It'll give them a notification, and then they contact the office and they verify that eligibility.
And scofflaw eligible means that they could put a boot on.
Yep, it means you either have 2 past due citations and you're currently in violation, or you have 3 or more past due citations.
Okay, and Council President,
Otherwise
So
uncontested.
your concern is that you're okay with people getting a ticket, but you don't want them to get booted on a weekend or any time in a city park.
Or any time at city parks, totally. You know,
The language seems to say that you may place. Issuance of a third citation, the police department may place or direct a person so authorized to place a device. So it sounds like that is discretionary and not required by the ordinance.
What's the ordinance number on that?
This is section 2242B, impounding and immobilization authorized.
So, just a question to the Corp Council. Can we put an amendment in just to affect the section regarding parks that would state that they would not boot cars in the park, or would that be problematic?
I mean,
So I can just say through you, Madam Chair, that with respect to the language of the ordinance, it's my understanding that this has already gone through the first step in ordinance establishment in terms of a public hearing. So obviously, with respect to any language that you add with it, because it's an ordinance change, I believe it would have to go back before a public hearing, so that any language that's effectuated within an amendment would need to be reviewed by the public. So that's obviously your right as council to be able to do that. I'm not sure if this is something that you want to postpone and you want to speak more about before it's brought before this committee again. That's also your option.
I will say I would prefer if city council would not want a mobilization in a park, I would prefer that it be spelled out in the ordinance. That way it's not discretionary for myself or future executive directors. I think if that's what the city wants, it's better to make that clear. But there's always a world where if we wanted to move forward, because obviously we're starting to get into spring and summer, that potentially we could move forward on the existing ordinance items and then move that other item to adjust the immobilization and impounding separately, if that is what you'd like to do.
So I just would share with the rest of the committee, based upon conversations we've had and different friends groups, that, you know, there is interest to get this started at the beginning of the summer. So as summer season gets busy and the parks get overloaded, so I just ask that you take that into consideration, but also fully understanding that there's interest for a future amendment. So I don't know how you all feel about that, but just wanted to state that.
Yeah, I mean, I would be content to move forward with this and and then submit at the next council meeting another, I wouldn't call it an amendment, because I think it's going to, well, it's an amendment to another ordinance. It's not changing this particular ordinance, it's changing 22-42B. And so we could have teed up for the next council meeting a change, an amendment to 22-42B. And I think we certainly expressed the desire of council to the parking authority. So since we've heard from the parking authority that it is already discretionary, I would be okay moving forward so that we could pass this out. But before we move forward, though, I do have another question about it.
Go ahead.
In the ordinance here, you've said that it'll be a fine if you're parking on the grass in a city-owned park. Got that. But then it says open space or green space. Are those defined terms? Is there something called city-owned open space or city-owned green space?
I think that decision was made to, actually, I have a line here from Natalie from Corporation Counsel, who couldn't be here tonight. City-owned park, open space, or green space is intended to be read broadly to permit HPA to enforce parking rules in any city spaces open to the public, including, for instance, as Heaven Skate Park popped up. That was an item that had been discussed at one point.
So that's the intention, is that it's any city-owned open space or green space. But
I think
there's
it was meant to be broad. That way, if there was a request to enforce somewhere, but as I hope I've made clear, our goal is not to just go into parks and enforce. It's to talk to each park and see what their needs are. The goal is not to just go in and widely start enforcing for anything. It's to find out, you know, when the needs exist and what the needs are. So there are some parks that might only need it when they have certain events, and we'll show up for an event and assist, but we won't be there every day.
And am I correct in stating that when you say green space and you mentioned Heavenscape Park, it's because it's not necessarily designated as a true park? Is that correct? I mean, not specifically to that park, but that would be an example, because that's not necessarily a designated park. Go ahead, Director Hayes.
Good evening, Chris Hayes, DPW Director. Through you, Madam Chair, Heavenscape Park is considered a park, but it's not considered green space.
Thank you for clarification. And do you have anything you'd like to add?
DPW has worked closely with the HPA on this amendment and has spoken to a number of the Friends groups that the HPA was working with, and we have no additional concerns. We're in support of this amendment change.
Thank you.
Got
Council
another
President.
question. Another question that was sent to me was, you know, we have different parades in the park, and we temporarily park for different events, you know, to drop off stuff, and possibly, so how is that going to be handled?
Again, I think once this moves forward, I would reach back out to all of the parks that we've already spoken to, verify who wants assistance, and then, you know, what events they need assistance for and what those requests are. So it would really be contacting them and stating if they have a parade, is there a need for us to be there? Would they prefer we avoid it? This is meant to assist with problems that are occurring, and again, to be helpful to the parks and the Friends groups.
Because what I think I'm hearing is, you know, you may have one or two parks which are, there is a persistent problem, and this ordinance basically governs all the parks and everything else. And so I do know, you know, I do participate more with the West Indian Day Parade and, you know, all the different parades and that comes into the park. I've got reservations on how that's going to be handled. If you talk to the event person, you know, do they say, you know, hey, don't come and give any tickets because we're going to be in the park? You know, I know, you know, people at Bushnell Park have issues with that, people parking on the green space. One of the things which I didn't see here is, or here, through you, Madam Chair, is, you know, providing additional parking for the use of, you know, people in the park. You know, that I'm not hearing. You know, it's that we're going to be fined if, you know, you park on the green space. Oh, thank you. I want to, and, you know, working with the city to provide additional parking would, so at least you can say there is alternative. And I'm not seeing or hearing that.
I mean,
Through you, Madam Chair, and through you, Council President, to address those 2 points. First, when it comes to parades and large events, all of those events are permitted through the city already, through the event permitting process. And as part of those special task force groups, areas designated for parking, number of parking spots, all of that is worked out and a part of the permit process. Both DPW and the HPA are both in those meetings. So, for example, the West Indian Day Parade, all of that would be worked out prior to the event so that there would be no confusion. This is not an attempt to limit what event promoters do. It's an attempt to enforce when needed. When it comes to additional parking locations, this particular ordinance amendment is only speaking to the ability to fine, and this would be outside the scope of the ordinance to discuss additional overflow parking.
So through you, Madam Chair, that's one of the things I would really like to see happen is looking for additional parking, you know, to help with this. So at least you can say to the residents who are using their parking is that, you know, we have provided additional parking for you to avoid getting a fine or a ticket. You know, you can park a block. I don't know where that will be, but would like to see something like that happen.
So,
Well,
go ahead.
if I may,
Councilor.
just,
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's kind of a separate issue and I don't know that anybody's going to lose any parking spaces. I mean, I'm not aware that the intent of this ordinance is to take away places that people are parking, unless it's just wholesale parking on the grass that's been a problem. And I don't think it's been identified that that's the problem area. But this ordinance very clearly says that unless otherwise authorized by the Department of Public Works or the Director of Development Services. So built into the ordinance are exceptions that can be made in working with our city staff to find all the appropriate parking for events, for instance. I don't know, on a routine daily basis, I think that's going to be more of an issue. I would suggest that that's a Keeney Park issue, and I don't think that's I wouldn't want to discuss that or make an ordinance on that without getting Friends of Keeney Park involved and go through a whole process. So I don't know that we should hold this up for that particular
No,
issue, but I hear you on it.
Yeah, we did reach out to the Friends of Keeney Park and talked about, the parking issues and asking them to open up, there's another area they can open up, working with DPW and the police department, so therefore we can get the double parking. They're not parking on the grass. They're just double parking on the street going up to the golf course. I know, but, we know some of our residents. So one of the things I did speak with them on is asking them if they could work with the city to open up some more parking spaces, which was closed off several years ago.
There is a large park right around the corner from the cricket fields. There is a huge parking area there, and there's even a little bit more parking farther down. A little bit longer walk, though, so. I would imagine our parks can be very helpful in getting that to happen.
And through you, Madam Chair, I would just say that the Public Works Department has, a desire for all residents and all visitors to be able to enjoy our parks. I personally see them as the backyard of our city, and with us having so many residents who lack a true backyard and a recreational space, our parks are incredibly important to the vibrancy of our city, and we are not looking to hinder that in any way, but instead to make our parks safe and enjoyable for all.
Yeah, I was also just going to speak to that. This is not only about enforcement, but it's about safety. And when you are at the parks on the weekend and you see some of the issues that occur, then this makes sense in a lot of ways. But by no means do we want to, limit the residents from enjoying their time there or causing them any issues or, imposing penalties that are not just. So I think this is more about, as you said, Director Hayes and CEO Turlo, is just bringing the parks to where they should be in terms of parking, but not to, inflict any harm on anybody.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I would say that this amendment should move forward, but I do think it would be important for us to get some language in 2242B, just about booting and just to make sure booting couldn't happen in parks. I know that's probably a discussion that we would have to have with everybody together. But when I think about it, it's if you got booted on Main Street, it's not like you never go down Main Street again. But if you get booted in Keeney Park, you might not go to Keeney Park again. And that's not the type of interaction that I want our people to have. Like I wrote down what, Chris just said about the backyard of our city, that's not the type of interactions I want people to have in our backyard. And so, I do think some language would be beneficial about that. But see, and it's so true, what Council President says about all the different parks are different. It's lots of different issues that they have going on. And different ways that they kind of do things. And with that double parking stuff on both sides, that's true. They really do. And it is hard, especially if you're in a bigger vehicle, to get through. And so, those things matter. Yeah, those things matter, And nobody wants to get booted, period. But I would hate to get booted out there in the park, you know. But then my other question too to you, Ms. Jill, does the Hartford Parking Authority even right now have the capacity to like be in the parks like that?
To be enforcing in the parks?
Yeah, like I know I see them obviously downtown, but like how would you manage parks?
So I've actually already had discussions with the senior parking operations manager for Reimagined, our enforcement vendor, notifying them that if this does move forward, that my assumption is we might need to get additional staff, but specifically on the weekends. Most of the parks we've spoken to, the real concern is, you know, weekends and events. I don't think there were any parks that were indicating that they were having, you know, weekday, midday concerns as much. So we would be trying to staff up for the weekends and largely, I think, seasonally through spring, summer, and fall. That's when most of the issues seem to be occurring from the conversations I've had.
Got you. Now, I thought we don't ticket on the weekends.
No, we ticket on weekends.
We don't
There are very
immobilize
few-
on the weekends.
Yes, we don't immobilize because
Got
the
it.
office isn't open and you can't pay for the boot, but we do ticket, especially for safety.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I would
Councilman
make a
Gale.
motion at this point that we move this forward back to council with a favorable recommendation, understanding the conversation that we've had so that we'll share with other council members the concern and the prospect of coming forward rather quickly with another change to these ordinances. But at this point in time, I'd move this one forward favorably back to council.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to send this item back to the full council with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. Motion passes. Moving on to item 2.2,
Thank you.
from Councilmember Gale and Councilmember Hernandez, an ordinance amending Chapter 31, Article 3, Sections 31-87 and 31-95 of the Municipal Code of Hartford to preserve the safety of city streets and sidewalks post-construction by utilities and others and post-repaving by the city. It is my understanding that there will be a motion to postpone.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to postpone this matter to the next agenda of this committee.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion has been postponed. Thank you. Moving on to item 2.3, Mayor Arulampalam with accompanying resolution authorizing the City of Hartford to apply for and accept community project funding for Colt Park.
Yeah.
I believe we have Director Drummy here to speak to this item. Thank you
evening.
very much.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you for your time tonight. So today, to my left, we have the city architect, Julia Jack, to speak on this resolution for the Cole Park.
Good evening. So this resolution has to do with a $1 million grant from HUD that we are requesting approval to accept. This has to do with the Colt Park Carriage House and Gardner's Cottage, which are in dire need of structural rehabilitation. Right now, we are putting together grant documents, and we are going to meet with the Historic Preservation Group next week, Wednesday, to walk through the building and hope that we receive your approval today.
Thank you. Director Hayes, have anything to add to that?
No, City Architect Jack, I think, summed it up phenomenally.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions?
Sure.
Councilman Gale.
What's the proposed use of this? What are we renovating it to do? How to look? How? For what purpose?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. Right now, we anticipate with the $1 million, we will be able to just make sure that these buildings are structurally stable and sound, and clean them out. The future use of the buildings is being discussed with Colt Park Foundation and the community members. So that hasn't been decided. We don't anticipate that this bunch of money will take us very far, honestly.
So this money will provide presumably a roof that doesn't leak and
Correct.
an exterior that's somewhat secure, but not a whole lot of interior upgrades.
Correct.
Are these the buildings that DPW presently has been using over the years to store this, that, and the other thing?
Through you, Councilman, no, these two buildings are currently vacant, and they've been deemed to be possibly structurally unstable. They're historic in nature and predate the DPW facility that is next to them.
Got it. Thank you.
Are these the buildings by Old North Cemetery? Like, I'm trying to think,
They're two buildings, Cole Park Pool.
Got it.
And the facility, the facilities department, those buildings were right there.
got it.
Yeah.
You said you guys are taking a tour next Wednesday?
Yes.
Is that open?
Yes, why not? Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, that's what I like to hear.
2:30 next week, Wednesday, on
Awesome.
site. We're
I
gonna
would-
bring, wear boots and.
A hard hat? You got a
If you have a
hard-
hard hat, that'd be great too, yes.
I appreciate the notice. Okay, thank you. I would love to be there. I sit on the board for the Hartford Preservation Alliance, and so historical buildings is like my thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I would love to be there. I have a Colt building tattoo right here, so this is
Okay.
up my alley.
Up your alley, we'll see you then.
Yes, yeah. So I would love to be there and get this done, and then we can start talking about what we're going to use it for in the next 50 years.
Yes.
I have no questions. Anytime we can get funding to prove anything in our parks, I'm very excited. So thank you all for your hard work. And do we have a motion on the floor?
I make a motion to send this back with favorable approval, recommendation, favorable recommendation. Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to send this item back to the full council with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item 2.4. Mayor Arulampalam, with accompanying resolution, authorizes and empowers the city of Hartford to enter into the above agreement to provide for the operation, care, and maintenance of Batterson Park. I believe Director Drummy will be speaking to this again, and we have CEO Zaleski here as well. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate you. So that being said, I did have Mike join us tonight to talk about this MOU in more depth. Batterson Park, we, the city as a whole, are very excited to start using this park again, and are also very excited to have Riverfront Recapture operate the park. So with that, Mike?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is first of all, let me say kudos to the city for pushing this Batterson Park revitalization forward. Paul, Julia, and Director Hayes and other city staffers have been very vigilant in moving this project forward. It is, it's on schedule, as far as the last I heard, for a September reopening, and Riverfront Recapture, as a management partner of the city of Hartford, is pleased to be considered to be a part of this management as well. The State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection is proposing a 3-part agreement between the state DEP, the city of Hartford, and Riverfront Recapture. This memorandum of agreement would bind these 3 entities into a funding agreement to use state passport to parks funds to manage the park. Riverfront Recapture would be the operator and would do the day-to-day maintenance and operations of the park. This is one of, in addition to that, the city of Hartford would under this resolution, would enter into a separate park management agreement with Riverfront Recapture, just the 2 entities, similar to our existing park management agreement for the 3 parks along the Connecticut River. And then the 3rd part of this resolution would be the allocation of project funds to Riverfront Recapture to purchase the equipment and vehicles necessary to take on the management of the park starting in the early fall. Time is certainly of the essence with the project moving forward quickly, and the goal that that Paul has put in place to have this park, cut a ribbon on this park the first week of September. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee members, do you have any questions?
Sure.
Councilman Gale?
So, what does DEEP bring to the table here?
So, through you, Madam Chair, Councilman Gale, DEEP is the agency that is overseeing the funding source being brought to the city of Hartford.
And how much is that funding?
So originally 10 million even, but through legislation, the total amount was reduced to, I believe, 9.350. Is that accurate? Am I close? Yeah.
And,
So-
and the DE, through you, Madam Chair, through you, Councilman Gale, and then the DEP oversees the Passport to Park funds that would fund the day-to-day maintenance. So through this agreement, the DEP would fund Riverfront directly to maintain the parks through the Passport to Parks fund.
So, as if it was more of a state park then? This won't come out of the city's budget to fund the day-to-day operations next year and the year after and the year after?
Correct.
So under the current draft MOA, state DEP would make a grant allocation of $800,000 a year to Riverfront Recapture directly for the management of the city of Hartford's Batterson Park. And that we're looking at a 5-year contract with 2 5-year renewals.
Sounds sweet. What will I be able to enjoy at Batterson Park?
Through you, Madam Chair, Councilman Gale, peace and quiet.
And in all seriousness, though, I mean, one of the issues that's always been brought up is whether there's ever going to be swimming there again. Is that part of this plan at all, or is this just a passive, really just a passive green space at this point?
Through you, Madam Chair. Councilman Gale, great question. So phase 1, with the funding, allowable funding in place, we are going to concentrate on having the park reopen with certain elements, trails, an event lawn, an amenities building, and splash pad. Thank you, Director Hayes. With the forward thinking that there is great desire to swim in that pond again someday. So the city, Riverfront Recapture, DEEP, and other stakeholders are, I think the ultimate goal in the future, Councilman, is to have this beautiful body of water to be able to swim in it again.
And through you, Madam Chair, I would just add that the work that has been done thus far in phase 1 doesn't rule out or doesn't put any obstructions like buildings that would have to come down or be moved if swimming became possible in the future. It develops other areas that would need to be developed anyway in a way that a phase 2 could occur when monies and funding allowed.
And I know several years ago, we entered into a contract with Avon High School, I believe, to allow them to use Batterson for crew practice. And I'm just wondering to what extent those types of activities are taking place today and will continue to take place.
There are no such activities occurring at this time. Those agreements have expired, and most recently, for the past couple years, the park has just been closed off to all visitors with gates locked at all times.
But with these improvements, it could be reopened for those uses, those purposes?
That would be up to your trusted management partner, Riverfront Recapture, under this contractual agreement, and we'd certainly be open to those types of activities. We've already had conversations with Camp Current about how we can get the the youth of the city that are attending the camp throughout the summer involved in the park. We would be looking for ways to involve city residents, incentivize residents to use the park, as it is a City of Hartford park, just like any other park in the city. And we would continue to have conversations with entities like Avon High School and others that might want to use the park in a certain way.
And I'm not advocating for Avon, mind you. I don't care if they ever get to use it again. But I would love to see Hartford residents be able to use that body of water to do things like I understand Riverfront is looking to do on the Connecticut River. The stuff that's been mentioned with respect to paddle boats and maybe kayaking or canoeing or whatnot. I mean, I don't know what kind of a grand scale you could build up to at Batterson Park, but the fact that you're in that business, I would love to see that extended over time to Batterson. And I see you shaking your head yes.
Sure. So thank you, Councilman. There is an opportunity to enhance opportunities to get out on the water. Our goal to start will be to to manage the park in a way that is accessible to the public, city residents, suburban residents as well. But there will be opportunities for canoes, kayaks, and pedal boats. There's a canoe and kayak launch in the park, as well as the adjacent state DEP boat launch, which we wouldn't be responsible for. But there are opportunities to get people out onto the water. And my hope is that we could incentivize Hartford residents to take advantage of those activities in the future. It's not part of the first phase of activity. We want to get the park back open and operating, but there's plenty of opportunity to expose people to canoeing and kayaking, which on what is a pretty great body of water.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One other comment while I have you. This is probably more for my grandchildren, but it's been requested of us in discussions that we've had over the last 6 months, I think very specifically with respect to our riverfront park. But it would appear to me that Batterson could be another opportunity for something similar. People have pointed out that there are other towns in other areas where the town makes available a place where I, as an individual, could lock up my canoe or my kayak so that it could be there. I could essentially rent the space. And so I throw out there, I know it's not going to happen year one, but perhaps year two, or again for my grandchildren, you could consider, put that into the pot as something to consider that residents, and that would be residents, could, Hartford residents could tie up their own kayak, canoe, or waterboard or whatever there. Thank you.
If I may, Madam
Councilman
Chair.
Thomas. Yep.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you guys for the work that you guys been doing around Batterson Park. Councilman Gale went there when he was a young boy. I never got a chance to go. so hope that my son's able to go and take advantage of the park. I heard you guys talk about the amenities and things that you're kind of putting in that space. I heard splash pad. That's awesome to hear. Because, kids love splash pads, but I didn't hear playground. Is playground part of this project? Okay, great. We gotta make sure it's a nice playground. If Batterson's gonna be like this new shining jewel that we want it to be, gotta have a nice playground and a shining jewel. The only other thing I was gonna say about this was, you mentioned Camp Current. Now, would Camp Current have to reach an agreement with Batterson Park or with the city to have more sustained usage, daily bringing kids to the park, or is it just kind of more so open space and so they can bring the kids wherever they want? How's that going to look?
Conversations continue with management of Camp Current. It's not easy to move a couple of hundred kids back and forth, so we're looking at very focused opportunities. We've talked about potentially exposing some of the campers this summer to, to the construction project in a safe way, that kind of truck-to-truck thing, get to see how the construction project's going. But I think in the future, there's going to be opportunities for campers to use the space in a way that, they may not be able to use the existing camp space, open fields and trails and other ways to learn about nature and environmental education that might be more appropriate in Batterson Park as opposed to the actual Camp Current space. So I think it's an ongoing conversation that Riverfront will continue to have with the Camp Current management, but there's great opportunities.
It's pretty close, right? It's been a while since I've been out there, but like, is it even like walking distance for the kids, or is that a little bit too far?
Through you, Madam Chair, Councilman Thomas. So yes, it is within walking distance, but it is not. There is not a safe path to travel. So to have these kids, a few hundred kids, come over to Batterson Park, the strong recommendation would be to bus them over. As silly as it may sound, there is no real safe passage from Current to Batterson.
Got it. Is that something that could happen in the future, or is it like...
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay. That's something to think about, too, then, in these conversations that we're having with Camp Current, is there a possibility that we could maybe meet halfway to figure out making a safe passage walkway for kids of Camp Current to make sure they're able to just walk to Batterson Park? That would be nice, and it could also even be a walking path that residents are maybe taking part in at some point, too. I heard you guys say you're going to do some walking paths in Batterson Park so Councilman Gale could get some peace and quiet and stuff like that. That would be good for us. One thing that you had said when you were speaking was ways to incentivize people to coming to parks. And that stood out to me. Now, when you say that, do you just mean more like events and things that are happening in the parks and like different amenities that people are just saying like, hey, I Googled a place to take my kids? Or is there something else that Riverfront Recapture does that kind of brings the people in?
Through you, Madam Chair. Councilman, I think it's an opportunity to brainstorm ways to get Hartford residents out to this suburban oasis. Let me give you an example, and it's not something we're planning on doing from the start, but if there was a canoe or kayak rental program, perhaps city residents would be free. That's the type of thinking that we would, please don't quote me on that one, but that's the type of thing where if you had an opportunity that we're not anticipating any paid opportunities from the start, but if Hartford residents had first crack at the pavilions or situations like that, it's part of the by accepting the Passport to Parks funds, admission cannot be charged to the park because your state of Connecticut motor vehicle registration pays for access to all of the state parks, and now Batterson Park, even though it is not a state park and will not be a state park, is included in that funding source, so admission can't be charged. But there will be other opportunities for us to encourage Hartford residents to come out to the park. We're also looking at public transportation. There is a bus stop that is just to the south of Batterson Park, so ways to encourage city residents who might use public transportation, get the information out about the right bus lines and how to access the park, because it's on a beautiful Saturday in July, it's gonna be a great space.
No, thank you for letting me know, because I couldn't think of other ways, but you got me to brainstorming, and that's good. So I appreciate that. That's why, you guys get the contracts. You get paid to think like that. So I appreciate you guys, truly.
I just want to say thank you to our partners at the state of Connecticut, our partners at Riverfront Recapture, and all, city staff who have made this possible to bring back this space to functional space for our residents, and another opportunity to utilize safe green space within our city limits. So thank you all so much. This is a long time coming, and we appreciate you all.
Move to send this back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to send this item back to the full council with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to item 2.5. Mayor Avramopoulos with accompanying resolution appointing Melita Godet to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. I now invite her up here to share with us her interest in joining this commission.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to be here, so thank you for having me. So as a new resident of Connecticut and a former member of the Parks and Recreations Commission for the City of Winston-Salem in North Carolina, I wanted to continue my service by serving my community here in the City of Hartford. I wanted to join the Parks and Recreation Commission because I believe in the power of public spaces to build community, support wellness, and improve the quality of life and contribute meaningfully to shaping those resources, ensuring they're inclusive, well-maintained, and responsive to all the needs of our residents. I really enjoy what I do, and with me being here in the state only a couple of months, it also gives me an opportunity to really grow and immerse myself in the community that I live in. So I'm excited about the opportunity to really be a part of this commission.
And thank you for your willingness to serve on such an important commission. Committee members, do we have any questions? Councilman Gale.
Thanks. I probably missed this, but you said you really enjoy what you do. What is it that you do?
So I currently work in college athletics at the University of UConn. So for me, it's all about bringing the connection and the community together and finding ways to really bridge the gap between athletics and sports and park and recreation. So that's exactly what I really love and enjoy doing.
Are you out at stores
Yes,
and living here in Hartford?
I am living here in Hartford.
Thank
I've been
you.
here a few months now.
Thank you.
And come from Winston-Salem?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Welcome to Hartford.
Thank you.
And welcome to our park system. You've heard quite a bit about parks tonight already, just sitting here. So good for you. And thank you for stepping up to volunteer your time. I mean, we appreciate everybody's time is valuable, and you're giving some of your valuable time to our city and to our parks. And as you can see from this agenda, this is a committee that does get involved with various aspects of the parks, and you should know that if in your work on the commission, you find that this body would be helpful, the door's always open here. So we would welcome any feedback or any requests from us. And we'll probably hear a few in a minute from Donna Swar when she talks to us. But anyway, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilman Thomas.
Yeah, I was just going to pretty much repeat exactly what Brother Gales just said. I just wanted to say thank you for your willingness to step up. It's amazing to hear someone moves in and sees how they can get involved. I wish there was more people that were as civically engaged as that. But then also that becomes a conversation of there are people like that, but they also don't know the steps to take to do so, in the sense of you were on the Parks Commission down in Winston-Salem in North Carolina. And so you kind of already know, hey, I go to my city hall if I want some stuff to happen. But there's some people that don't know that, or maybe have a fear of that. And maybe also think that people on these commissions or the people that are here in City Hall might not look like them or don't talk like them or might be smarter than them, got more degrees than them, all these different things that get in the way of people engaging civically. And I just want to say I appreciate you being in this space, because there's going to be young girls that look like you in our city that will see you at the park, and hopefully you shake their hand, give them a hug, and ask them, a question about how they feel like the park is going, and you could affect change for them. So I just want to say I appreciate you for real. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to send this back with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to send this item back to the full council with a favorable recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lastly, we have item 2.6, a presentation by PrAC Commissioner Donna Schwar on the Colt Park Spring updates in PrAC.
Member, oh, geez, that's good, turn it on. Our newest member. And what I had done was I had sent to you the Colt Park Spring Update. And one of the announcements really is that Catherine's on board, and she is going to be leading the organization moving forward. I'm going to be, I think my title is secretary. When you're on these small boards, yes, you have things like president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, but we each have, I call it, our roles that we consider to be, makes more sense. So Catherine is going to be the person who really reaches out into the community, involves the community, and I'm going to be stepping back to doing things like writing grants, communications, et cetera. So that's my new role. I did move out of the city last June, so I did. I'm older now. So I looked for 3 years for suitable housing for my husband and myself, and we just didn't find anything. So Catherine, we need somebody eyes on the ground. We need to have the person who's basically leading there to see what's going on. And Catherine lives 2 blocks away from the park. She was, I'll say, dropped out of heaven. And we are just thrilled to have her on board. I don't know, Catherine, if you wanted to say hi or a few words about what you do, what your goal, what your vision is.
What's my vision?
I mean,
Hi, thank you. Well, I'm also thrilled to become the president of the Colt Park Foundation. And Donna is a great leader, and I've learned a lot from her. So my vision is to keep Colt Park clean, safe for all of the residents of Hartford, and to follow in Donna's footsteps. She was a great role model for me. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to do that, and it's great to meet you.
you're welcome.
So the spring update, clearly you can see that, yes, cleanups was number one. You can see an image of what we call the hill. It goes down from Mawarmey Avenue into the park. And before this, it was just a mess. Yeah, there were trees there, but they were what they call volunteers. They weren't strong trees. They were just sort of weedy trees, and they would fall over. And then we got a lot of brush. And to be honest with you, I know people hear a lot about illegal dumping. Well, that was a favorite site. And it was a really long strip. And it was impossible to get the illegal dumping cleaned up with all of that stuff in there. We also had a real serious problem with the homeless moving in, and it was honestly a dangerous terrain. And for someone to think this is a great place to live, it was a terrible place to live. The forestry division went through and cleared it out, and wood chips are being put down. And the feedback that we got from the community, this certainly was not, I'll say, a priority for the community. They just always saw it as a mess and tried to pretend that it wasn't there and sort of ignore it. But once it was cleared up, we got a tremendous amount of positive feedback. And typically, sorry to put it this way, you don't always get all positive feedback. You get people like, what are you doing? You're disturbing, nature, or, taking down trees, that's not good. Anyway, we got a lot of positive feedback. A lot of parents, for some reason, don't like to get out of their car when their children are practicing a sport. And they literally sit up on that road now and can see everything. And that does add to, I call it a public safety issue, that you can see better. The police, when they're driving by, they can see if something is going wrong or if there's ATVs zipping around. So that is a big piece of it as well. So we can thank Mark Dowd, our park superintendent, because this has been on his list since the first day he came. Here we go. We've had 2 groups already volunteer to clean up, the Amigos and the National Park Service, and they're the only ones that have been allowed to get up on that hill and clean because it is a dangerous terrain. We do have 2 more groups coming in, but that isn't something we'd have your average person come in. They don't come dressed correctly, they don't have good ankle support, et cetera. So but we're really happy that we're getting a lot of support from different groups. The dike, I already discussed. Let's see if I can go into, oh, good. The Sam Colt Monument is, sorry Julia's not here because this is strictly out of her, division. The money came from the National Park Service, and it was $90,000, which, sorry to put it this way, that's not really not that much money, but it made a really big difference. So the entrance to the park now, this statue that has been tagged, defaced, vandalized, has been refurbished, and it is still in the process of getting cleaned because of this weather. So we had so many meetings. I kept calling up Catherine saying, we had another meeting about the patina. I think we had 6 to 8 meetings about the patina, but we did get community input, and it is going to be, I'll call it the greenish brown. It's the best way to describe it. Ochre is the word they use. But it's really very exciting, and it will look terrific when it's cleaned up. And so that really is, I call it the big thing for what's going to be the most noticeable this spring. But coming this summer, and some of it has already happened, underneath what we call the gazebo, the veranda. The veranda is that big metal structure. And they finally, we used to have this really funky gravel, and they finally put in a smooth surface so you can like blow it and wash it. Before that, the crumbs and whatnot would drop in between the cracks, and we would attract rodents. So that was icky. And 2 pads for food trucks were put in. So that was the beginning. There's going to be a new entrance for the park maintenance vehicles through the, by the pools. And the reason why this is important is the place where they normally go in, or always did go in, was down by the concession stand, and they would leave the gate open because they were going in and out, and therefore cars were coming into the park, and they were driving at unsafe speeds. Anything over 15 miles an hour is unsafe, and it is very dangerous. So the new entrance by the concession stand is not going to allow for cars. It's going to be pedestrian traffic. We have an interior road for people. We call it a road, but it's really just a really wide path for sanitation trucks and walkers. And so now that will be very safe, and we don't have to worry about vehicles driving around the park. And we were one of the biggest proponents of the parking changes, the HPAs, because which I spoke to at the public hearing, we have a lot of people just driving into the park and parking on the grass right next to brand new trees, and they were dying. They're parking next to old trees, and they were dying. And so we really need to, once we make that big investment, it's so, stupid for it to be destroyed, because these efforts are going into our parks and money is being spent. So anyway, there's going to be 2 new entrances in the park that will really spiff up what it looks like. Julia Jack is working on getting a proposal to get a design for the front of Colt Park. Right now, the park has 3 of the sections of, cast iron fencing missing, and the rest of it is just icky. So a decision has to be made about what we're going to do there. But we're moving along. A tremendous amount of work is going on in Colt Park. We are making great strides in our master plan, and that's really very exciting. So the next, that's Colt Park. So my next thing is, the activity. Oh, it's been booming and busting over there. I mean, so when she said about most of the park people calling in for overview of the parking issues on the grass, in Colt Park we do have problems in the evening, which we hope to have addressed like once a month. But we will work, as she said, we work together and say, okay, how often we'd like it and where. It's very targeted. So for us, Morris Street Extension is, I'll call it, the primary focus for the illegal parking. And once we close down the gate to the parks, we shouldn't have the parking on the grass. So that's pretty much it. But we have incredible use all spring, summer, and fall. So George, where's George? There, okay. Now I'm going to give the PRAC presentation, and if you don't want to stay here, that's fine. Okay. So this presentation, you can see how long we worked on it. It says 2024. We've been working on this for a year. Our purpose was that unlike many others in the city, unlike John Gale, who happens to know all of the parks really well, most people do not know how many and how big our park system is, because that's what it is. It's a system. So we wanted to review the mission, and we wanted to give the overview of the Parks and Friends groups. I am not going to read every slide. I'm going to pull out pieces that I think are of the most import. So 46 parks, and I'm not including Batterson. Okay, so we have a lot of acreage that DPW has to maintain. We have a lot of usage, and we have I call it a statistic that is much desired by other cities, that we have a park within a 10-minute walking distance of all but 3% of our population. We have 21 members. Currently, we have 17. That includes our newest member. So exciting. I think she's under 50. Ooh. I think so too. But that's kind of like we get excited. So the members are broken up into representatives of the Friends groups and at-large members. And all of the larger parks have Friends groups and therefore have representation, but we've really struggled with the at-large members, and we need those at-large members. So we're hoping to see many other people come before you to represent the city. Our functions include, well, who do we work with first? Public Works. We used to work with families, children, and youth. We still do somewhat. I don't want you to think that we no longer are involved with their activities. We promote all of them. And the new Sports and Rec department. So we're supposed to be the advisory body to the mayor through them. We do studies and recommendations, and I have a large collection of studies and recommendations that I have submitted to the town clerk's office, and hopefully they will be stored, because nobody lives forever and everything's on this PC. So I wanted to be sure to show people the studies that we did and why we made the decisions that we made. Because when you read the results of any meeting, you don't know why. But if you were to see the studies, you would understand it better. We also have relationships with the schools, the community, and civic organizations. So for instance, Colt Park is in an interesting area. We are surrounded by 3 schools. They use our park almost every day in the good weather. So we need to know what they're planning on doing. They need to know what we're planning on doing. And we provide a lot of communications with those groups. We're supposed to be, and have been, serving as a contact point for the public. When they cannot get their issues resolved, or their recurring issues, and they feel that they're only being treated as one-off, they will come to us and ask us for advice as to what to do and who they should talk to. We also hold an off-site every 2 to 3 years, which, to be honest with you, has been a tremendous improvement. It helps us focus on what our goals are going to be, and everyone gets, it's a chance to really talk, to really have discussions. Bushnell Park is our first park, and I know it is the most well-known park. So some of this is going to be, I call it highly repetitive, because I know they've come to you. You can see that they've been around since 1981. Now, for me, 1981 seems like yesterday. But for the people who are younger, they think, wow, 1981. Okay. It's really pretty funny. But they say their vision is to maintain a safe and inclusive green space. And their mission is to collaborate with the city dedicated to protection, preservation, and enhancement. And that brings me to the historic aspects of many of our city parks. So they aren't just parks, modern parks. They have an historic aspect. And when we do our planning and our decision-making, we have to take that into account. Many of these parks, when they were added in the early 1900s, came with a stipulation of how the person who gave us the park the intention of its use. So for instance, Colt Park, Elizabeth Colt spoke to basically public use, but she wasn't talking about pastoral experience like they were with Keeney or Bush. It was, they sponsored a lot of, baseball leagues, they sponsored band. They had all kinds of activities in their park with the community. So it has a very different flavor than many of the other historic parks. Here's a list of all their members. And here I just want you to draw your eye to the volume column. They have consistently brought in funding. They are a strong partner with the city of Hartford. And sometimes I think that the dollar amounts get lost. The level of effort for any planning project is tremendous. These people are all volunteers. And I think it's noteworthy of how much money they've brought to the park. I know that you've heard about the pump house and the wonderful, carousel. It's something that everyone enjoys. They do have community members, and they note that they have corporate neighbors, and those are great. Personally, when you get volunteers in and they're residents, to me that is the most meaningful thing. But if you want dollars, you got to have those other ones. Their strategic plan, I'm sure they've shared this with you. Preserve historic tree canopy. I think we all heard about the 2 trees that recently have been deemed as dead, and that's because all of those vehicles in the park, parking underneath those trees, emissions, stuff, oil, whatnot, coming out of them. They aren't those carts do leak a lot. So that has been a huge, huge problem. Anything to do with water, always needs a lot of maintenance. So the Corning Fountain, the pump house, it's an active pump house. It is not something that's down on the ground and nobody goes down there and nothing happens. That pump is vital to preservation of downtown Hartford. It pumps water. And if there were to be a flood, that's going to be what saves downtown Hartford. So they do landscaping around it and it looks nice. But there is a real working entity. And so there are restrictions about what you can do in that area. Areas of concern, of course, they have the Memorial Arch. The city has not historically done a good job preserving monuments. And, I spoke to that with Colt Park and the statue. And lack of irrigation system for maintaining garden beds. Again, it's water, 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 and they're all just high maintenance and expensive. Colt Park, I gave you much of, I call it the activity today. We have 5 board members. We formed 2 to 3 years ago, I guess it's 3 years now, as a nonprofit. Prior to that, we were Friends of Colt Park, and there was one for over 20 years. It morphed in and out as all Friends groups do. Sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're weak. But that was behind the creation of the foundation, to put a structure to that organization to support the park, and now we're able to go out for grant opportunities. Our mission, you're going to hear it over and over again with the parks: a safe environment, preserve nature, and enhance active and passive use. And then once we became a foundation, we added on increased public and private support, and that is in terms of financial support. We advocate with the parks. We serve on the commission. We attend tree advisory meetings. We provide all of the, I'll say, input from the community for all of the changes. But again, that park master plan is the guide. And without that guide, we would be constantly saying, and now what do we do? So we plan and execute events each year, and we try to promote cultural awareness, literacy, and artistic expression. We've hosted many art shows. I think I've pretty much said this. We have a partnership with the National Park Service. We have partnerships with many groups. Our biggest event is a trunk or treat every year in October, and this will be, I think, our 7th year. It doesn't seem that way. Time flies. But we have a Pedro Mercado, who is the vice chair, does the sports leagues and community to take input as to how things are going in the park. I've told you about the projects that are coming up. There's one thing that hasn't been mentioned. Within the pool area, we had a blighted area. It was the former handball court. And unfortunately, the design of the handball court blocked the view of what was happening behind in the back courts. And there was prostitution and illegal drug sales. And you couldn't see it from one side, but you could if you were in the pool. So that has come down, and we're making a picnic area. And that's going to be very nice, and there is actually no seating within the pool area right now, so I know that it will be, and many benches are going in, so people have some place to sit. Areas of concern, we struggle with field maintenance. A lot of the leagues do a lot of their own, and it's really hard because they can't use a lot of the equipment that is necessary. When I came here today, I stopped by and saw Brian Gallagher, the Sports and Rec Department Director, out there putting lines down on the field. Everybody has to do their own. The park maintenance can only put down lines once a week. We have a real problem with vandalism. We have field reservation disputes where the police have to be called in, show me your permit. Seriously. No grilling is allowed because we don't have grilling in the park. It is mostly because of public safety. And I understand there's been a real uptick in unauthorized motorized vehicles such as ATVs in the park. Catherine witnessed it the past couple of Saturdays. Wish list. We've talked about this with the architectural group, what's up next. So we want to put in lighting between Stonington and Morris Street Extension. That is a very dark area, and it's heavily used by pedestrians, and they've been asking for it for since 2014. So we really do want to get that done. The next big, I call it plan, is for the renovation of the soccer and football fields. There are, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those fields, and we're discussing turf as the solution, and there are many towns and cities that have gone to what they call multi-use fields, and they put the lines down for every sport. So yellow is soccer and blue is football, and you know, that kind of thing. So that's what we're advocating for. Whether it's extremely expensive, but the amount of maintenance that less cost is huge. Let's see, all right, Elizabeth Park. Elizabeth Park is a long-standing park. It is one of the first legacy parks. But what some people don't know is that they have donated the money for the poinsettia tree. I don't even know if it happened this past December. It did, okay, they go strong, they don't forget. They've done a tremendous amount of fundraising. And it says here, supports the City of Hartford DPW and the Parks Department. That is the truth. They fund 2/3 of the funding for that park, and they do much of the work. The city does have a facility there, and they do all the mowing. And I'm not saying they don't do a lot of work in Elizabeth Park. I know they do a lot of tree maintenance. They do a lot, but still, the cost of maintaining that park is really quite high. They look at even in their name, Elizabeth Park Conservancy. So if you look at what different entities call themselves, you can pretty much figure out what their mission is. And so that rose garden is key to their mission. But they really do want people to come in and enjoy the park. And so they're always trying to figure out things that would make that park visit much more enjoyable. For instance, the visitor center was a real boon. Real bathrooms, yay. Water, yay. So here are a couple of the projects. They redid that incredible greenhouse, and I hope that you are able to take advantage of going over there in the spring to see their spring tulip and flower display, as well as during the winter they have a really cool train show. Future plans. These people just really keep going along. They're in progress with the perennial garden and the pavilion. They want to do some more work in the interior of the greenhouses. And they have this structure that's called the Gardener's Head House, and that's next on their list, and it is going to be completely refurbished. Their concerns. Just like with all the parks, there's no supervision. We don't have park rangers like Riverfront, and it's something that we put on our list every year. We really do need somebody in the park walking to settle, I call it, the grills, the park permits. Just when you see people driving around, you can just say, no, you can't be over here, that's unsafe. But they are looking very progressively about hiring somebody for their park because it has, they've done the math. They've gone out and found out how much it would cost. They've determined when they would need to have the security. And so they're under consideration of hiring a company to do so. Friends of Goodwin Park, it's Hyacinth Yenny represents Goodwin. And she said, well, you know, most of our park is the golf course. But I will give a caveat to that many people use the golf course as part of their walking path. I used it at least once a week. It's a lovely path. It's safe. It's enjoyable. The hills aren't too steep. It's not too buggy. It's really nice. And the area that is designated for community use is really lovely, and it has the pool, playscape, splash pads, fitness circuit. It's a really charming area, and it is extremely heavily used. It's important to go to some of these Facebook groups once in a while because there are videos that are posted, and you just won't believe how many people are there. Their goals. To promote safety and a healthy environment. Does this sound, you know, it's typical, so I'll just move on. Past achievements, they do host monthly cleanups, and they do a lot of small projects, which are really cool. They make sure that there's mulch, they make little trails. They do a lot of small things, but they're very meaningful to the people that live around there. And they've started this project that has a labyrinth, and that has stalled for 5 years. And they really want to get it done this year. So if you hear and have that come before you, please pass it. Oh, so there's a picture of the labyrinth and the wildflower meadow. But they didn't put the date in there, but I know it's 5 years. Continuous problem with litter, tires, furniture, graffiti. So it's frustrating. Now this is Highland Park, and they don't have a friends group, but their Southwest Behind the Rocks NRZ is their advocate. I also want to add that to that group, Colin Billings is at-large member that serves that group, and he comes to the meetings. That park is primarily a athletic park. And they do have splash pads, they do have playscapes, but that's primarily what it has turned into. It used to have a rec center, but then it was converted into a daycare center, which was a real shame because that community lost a space, which we'll get to on another slide. They want to take over certain parts of the building, and I know that they've been working very closely with DPW. But again, when that was turned into a daycare center, the community was completely shut off from that facility. Keeney Park. Keeney Park is a huge park. Where do you begin? Okay, so here we have all the aspects of Keeney Park. It is huge. It has many wonderful characteristics. To preserve and improve the natural features, it was, like a couple of other ones, oh my gosh, I'll think of it in a minute, a homestead park. And it was put together in mind for restive kind of restorative experiences for people. They are a very long-standing group, 35 years, and they have done some wonderful things, but just like every other group, some years are stronger than others. But now they're working on a master plan, and I think that's great because what I've learned is the master plan is the way to go. So they, you know, I don't think, I'm not trying to say that they haven't, this isn't important, but they, it's very similar. They collaborate with city, state, and federal partners, and they've done a tremendous job and a lot of hours and a lot of dedication. Areas of concern. They mentioned that they're a regional park, and that gets to be some, I call it a contentious topic. Which one of our parks is a regional park? Well, we know that Bushnell is because it's used for statewide events. But Keeney Park has also been designated as a regional park, and it has not received the attention, and this master plan is hopefully going to remedy that. And it says addressing maintenance disparity. It really depends on what day of the week it is, because if there's a special event, that pulls a lot of DPW assistance. And that's something that happens in all the parks, but being that Keeney Park is such a large park, they really feel it. Wish list, champion funding, and they'd like more support in supporting youth and senior programming. So, Pope Park and the designated fund. The Friends Group, it's a very interesting combination. And this too was designed by Olmsted, but it was split up into 4 pieces because of 84, and that really did a lot of damage to the park. And they've been trying to remedy that ever since. Their mission to support and restore Pope Park, especially Pope Park Designated Fund, they put a lot of money back into the park. And raise funds as well for trees, for, I'll call it mostly for plant life. Their achievements, their master plan 2002 really led the way for other parks. They did a great job. 3 projects, completion of walking paths. So you say to yourself, Pope Park West, where's that? You know, honestly, it's this little section that is over near the industrial parks. It's next to the railroad tracks. They do have some amenities, but it is not as well used as it should be because I believe that there isn't much programming over there. Concerns, plant beds in the park. They are very, very, I'll call it plant life focused. That's how I met David Morin. I won a tree, and he was there, and I said, I don't have any place to put this tree, do you? And he said, yes, I do, Donna. And so he collected everybody's trees, and he brought them to Pope Park. Asylum Hill, Sigourney Square is a tiny, tiny, tiny park, heavily used. And it's historic. And if you haven't ever read any of Sigourney's poems, look them up. Okay, what they want is a clean space with tree canopy. And they just want to, they want to support the community through art, culture, and history. They do want to have a safer haven. And their areas of concern is they don't see a lot of children using the playscape because they have some people hanging out in the park that make it all the time. Okay. They struggle with maintaining the Friends Group, but that's why the Asylum Hill NRZ is so important in maintaining that connection. And they work very closely with DPW and the police department to see what they can do. This is the part that I didn't want to have left out, our pocket parks. I made this little Google map, and I showed you where they are. And because people are always so concerned about, is everything equal?
Are you going to send this presentation to council?
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. And so you will get it. So, George,
This isn't all of them, though.
It's not.
these are the pocket parks. Yeah, just pocket parks. These are very, I showed you how big they are, and I showed you where they're located. They frequently get left out.
Excuse me, Donna, just sorry to interrupt, but in the spirit of time, we could either have you come back.
This is the last slide.
Okay.
Phew, huh?
We just wanted to make sure that, you know,
No.
you would get to share all the information with us, and
That's fine. This is the last slide. I just want to be
Thank
sure
you.
that you know about how small these parks are and how important they are to our community. It's where people walk and bring their young children to run around for a few minutes, drink a cup of coffee, get a little bit of break. But they are very important, and they're part of the reason why we have a 10-minute walk to a park in our city. Without these pocket parks, we would never have reached that status. But they get left off. Their needs are not being addressed. And so I would like to have that become an issue that is addressed at every budget hearing. What are you doing for the pocket parks? Pick one a year. I don't care, you know. They're all in different states of disarray. So that's my presentation. I'm sorry I went on for so long, but this is something that's long overdue. And we really needed to get before you. And we have a new chair, Naisha McCauley, and because of COVID, and we really dwindled in the number of commissioners. We just about lost all of our at-large members except for Colin. And so we aren't getting or weren't getting the input that we needed.
thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for sharing that with us. I just want to thank everybody who participated tonight and was in attendance with us. We appreciate all the information that you shared with us. And seeing we have no other business, this meeting is adjourned.